係恢復。
All right, let's resume our meeting. Let me declare the result. The chairman is Mr. Abraham Sheikh, Vice Chairman Mr. Martin Liao. The House Committee will be submitting the list of membership to the President for appointment. Item number 8. Request of Mr. Hui Jifeng to seek the House Committee's recommendation for an adjournment debate under Rule 16.4 of the ROP at the Council meeting of July 12 on Mr. Liu Xiaobo being diagnosed with late-stage liver cancer and granted medical parole. I'll let Mr. Hui speak and then seek members' views as to whether we should have this adjournment debate on July 12 in addition to the 2 motion debates. Mr. Hui, 3 minutes, please. Madam Chair, Mr. Liu Xiaobo was diagnosed as suffering from terminal liver cancer, and he's on medical parole. In fact, on June the 28th, I raised this with the President, and at the last House Committee meeting, I raised this, and I was turned down for reason of having no urgency. It's only today that I managed to bring this up for some discussion. Madam Chair, Mr. Liu Xiaobo is the representative person for OA Charter. Now, the OA Charter is about democratic process in the country and also constitutional reform, and there should be reform in the name of universal democratic development. The 2008 Charter represents the aspirations and symbol of taking forward democracy in the country. The 08 Charter represents the aspirations of the people for freedoms. What has Mr. Liu Xiaobo done wrong to warrant a jail term of 11 years? And this has caused separation with his wife. What has Mr. Liu Xiaobo done to warrant the sacrifice of his health and even his life to speak up for the human rights of the mainland people? I hope they hear in this council, and this is a constitutional platform, and I hope that we can speak up for Mr. Liu Xiaobo. The pro-establishment members may not be in agreement with the 08 Charter and what Mr. Liu Xiaobo stands for, but on a humanitarian ground, Mr. Liu is an important figure and a pivotal figure in terms of human rights in the country. I hope that members will let Mr. Liu Xiaobo have a way out. According to the media, Mr. Liu is really on deathbed. This is a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and I don't think he should be under the yoke of this country in the last days of his life. Now we're here till 4:30. Where members who wish to speak, please indicate, and I draw a line there. Mr. Alvin Young. Madam Chair, I do not think I need to say too much about who Mr. Liu Xiaobo is. I'm sure everyone in the pro-establishment camp knows that Mr. Liu has made contributions, and what he suffered, what ordeal he has been put through over the years. I just sincerely hope that members of the pro-establishment camp will be holding true to humanitarian ground, and they should show their carrying bone and support this motion moved by Mr. Ted Hui. You may not be in agreement, but I hope that when you take the floor to speak, you would, for someone who may not have long to live, try not to be too harsh on this gentleman. Madam Chair, under one country, two systems, we have to cherish the fact that on Chinese soil, Hong Kong is the only place where we can speak up for justice. There are many things that cannot be talked about in the mainland. I think in Hong Kong we have the obligation to speak up for justice. I think we have to let justice be done to individuals, and I hope they will have the fair-mindedness to look at this, even if this is not New South Wales, even if any dissidents, when they are suffering from this kind of ordeal, we have to speak up for them. And I hope that you would support Mr. Ted Hui's motion. Mr. Wong Kwok Kin, Madam Chair, I hope that Mr. Liu Xiaobo will recover from his illness. This has nothing to do with human rights. Mr. Liu is on medical parole. He's being treated at a high-quality hospital. If this is raised by an individual or any political party, it should be fine. But we are trying to move a motion here in this council under the one country, two systems. It would mean that an SAR legislature is interfering with the affairs of the mainland. Today, if the NPC of Guangdong province or Shenzhen were to move a motion to urge the Hong Kong government or the Hong Kong court to release the 7 policemen, then I'm sure that we'll be jumping up and saying that this is an interference of our system. Now, why do we have to interfere with the mainland system? It's got nothing to do with human rights here. We have a lot of occasions on which we can articulate our views. I just don't think that it is right for us to interfere with mainland affairs directly here in this council, because otherwise in future we have no reason to say no to any interference of Hong Kong affairs by the mainland. The FTU is opposed to this proposal. Mr. Charles Mock, Madam Chair, I support Mr. Hui's proposal because Mr. Liu Xiaobo is a pivotal figure, because he is the only Nobel Peace Prize laureate who is Chinese. On Wednesday is going to be the last meeting for this legislative session. Next time, we'll have to wait until October. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng, sorry, Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. Mr. Wong Kwok Kin said what he said. I'm grateful to him for expressing concerns about one country, two systems. In fact, Hong Kong legislature does have debates on June the 4th, and we did vote on this. So his example is not really relevant. Mr. Liu Xiaobo was put behind bars as a result of the OA Charter, and he's been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And Mr. Liu has been trying to persuade people. He's very much a scholar, trying to persuade people with reason he ended up like this. We are very, very indignant about it. I hope that we would have an opportunity, and we'd like to have this humble German debate to articulate our concerns, and also articulate our concerns to the mainland authorities that being granted medical parole he should be granted medical parole overseas. Now this would be very different from medical parole inside the mainland of China. Mr. Wong that said that he's being treated in a good hospital. Dr. Huo, Madam Chair, I support this German debate on Mr. Liu Xiaobo. By the time we get a slot for a motion debate on Mr. Liu, I'm not sure whether Mr. Liu would live long enough for that. Mr. Liu is a Chinese being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He's the conscience of Chinese people. He's suffering from terminal liver cancer, and this is really something that we feel really angry about. We feel shame about it. We have the obligation to move this German debate. Some said that what has Mr. Liu got to do with us? On the other side of the chamber, they said that they are proud of being Chinese. In fact, Mr. Liu Xiaobo is the conscience of Chinese people. Anybody with any conscience knows that Mr. Liu represents the fundamental human rights that one should have. It is the Communist Party that has deprived him of his rights. He's been incarcerated, and he might be dying of terminal liver cancer. This is what the Communist Party did. The European Parliament also had some debate, and they had the motion endorsed for Mr. Liu to be given the right to choose where he receives medical treatment. This is human rights. I don't think the Council would or should be degenerating to such a bad state that we can't even debate on this. Mr. Nathan Law, Madam Chair, we can't debate on Mr. Liu Xiaobo's issue. We should feel shame about it. The world over, famous human rights organizations have published statements, and the European Parliament also endorsed the motion for Mr. Liu to receive treatment where he wishes. We haven't even got a chance to engage in the debate. We have to bear in mind that Mr. Liu is suffering from terminal liver cancer, and the family members have been put on notice that he may not be able to make it. Why is it that we can't debate on this issue? Why is it that there are still pro-establishment members who are advancing these incoherent reasons to block this debate? Mr. Liu has been championing and making contribution in the mainland of China in the way of human rights. The pro-establishment members should really ask themselves whether they think Mr. Liu is a patriot. If so, why is it that we cannot debate on his plight and urge the mainland authorities to let him decide on the place for treatment? Now, who's a patriot? Do you consider those senior officials who have a passport in their back pocket patriots? Do we consider them patriots? I think we have to be fair. Hong Kong enjoys the freedom of speech. We have to speak up for him. If you do have a patriotic heart and want human rights, I hope that you would agree with this German debate so that we can have some discussion.
Ms. Claudia Mo, I want to say this to Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. The medical parole what we want is medical parole in a foreign country, not just out of the prison. He's now in the hospital, out of the prison. But we want Mr. Liu and his wife to be able to go out of the country. And the criminal case of 7 police officers was an undisputed fact of criminality. But this Mr. Liu is a Peace Nobel laureate. How can you compare Mr. Liu with the policeman? So if you suggest that if we express our anger, it's an interference. But we have been having motion debates on the June 4th incident. Why didn't you protest against this? The June 4th incident was a major crackdown. It's a massacre. And so now what the nonsense that it is an interference. The 2008 Charter is an important human rights document. It calls for the westernization and the implementation of human rights in China. Please support this proposal. Ms. Tanya Chan, I thank Mr. Hui Chi-fung for moving this proposal to have an adjournment debate. The pro-establishment camp should be assured by the fact that we don't have to vote on an adjournment motion. It's just an opportunity to afford members to speak out. Well, this is a case which has attracted international attention. If we are still a free community, if we still have freedom of speech, then I cannot understand why some members of this council would object to having this adjournment motion. This is simply beyond understanding. We're talking about a person, the one who's advocating the 2008 Charter. He's advocating the rights enshrined in the Constitution, and he was persecuted and jailed, and now he's suffering from terminal cancer, and then they have photos taken of him with his wife. And the videos was shown, and then what's all these for? They're just trying to suggest that he's free. A medical parole that means that he's still a prisoner, and he's just taken out of the prison to receive medical treatment. Madam Liu Xia is under tremendous pressure, so I'm very concerned about her as well. Mr. Wu Chi-wei, this case involving Mr. Liu Xiaobo is of course a matter of concern to us. And a German debate in this council will enable members to say what they want to say on the case involving Mr. Liu Xiaobo, who's a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and Mr. Liu's civil rights have been deprived. So it's as simple as that. The German motion debate is not about restating our stance. We just want to talk about the human rights that everyone should be entitled to, and we want to say something about the way Mr. Liu has been treated. And we would like to remind the Central People's Government takes the civil liberties and human rights in the Constitution seriously, because these rights have not been realized. And now Mr. Liu is suffering from terminal liver cancer, and he doesn't have long to live. But the so-called medical parole is granted in such a way that even the people close to him would be subject to surveillance and monitoring and cannot see him. And now Madam Liu Xia would like to get proper medical treatment options for him. Mr. Liu cannot see his friends and those people who have been fighting the cause with him. So through this German motion, we'd like to speak up for Mr. Liu and also express Hong Kong people's concerns in this matter. Mr. Siu Ka-chun, I think we all understand that for someone who's dying, Mr. Liu is dying, he doesn't need to have this a German motion move for him. But I think we need Mr. Liu to prove that whether this council remains what it was, and that we are able to speak up for justice. Why are people afraid of Mr. Liu? Who are afraid of Mr. Liu? I expect my country to be a land where views can be freely expressed, and everyone who's speaking out their minds will be treated equally. They can talk about different political ideas, and they can freely exchange views, and minority and majority views are equally respected, especially views which are not lied by the powers that be would be protected and respected. And all views will be put to the citizens of the country for when a choice is to be made, and no one will be subject to political persecution. I expect that I would like myself to be the last victim of criminalization because of speech. It's the last statement by Mr. Liu. What has Mr. Liu done wrong? I think this council would regain our dignity and will win respect by speaking out for Mr. Liu. I support Mr. Hui's proposal. Mr. Kwong Chun-yu, there's no need to say more about Mr. Liu's case. It's plain for all to see. We still don't know whether we are going to have this adjournment motion. We're not saying that we should save him. We just want to talk about him in this place where we still have the freedom of speech, so we can say something about the medical parole granted to Mr. Liu. And now they don't even allow us to speak out. Pro-establishment members should note that we all share some basic moral codes, as Mencius has expounded. So we do have empathy. Don't say that this is an interference with the affairs in China. He's a Nobel Prize laureate, and he's been imprisoned for so long. And now the carrier Liaoning is in Hong Kong, and many members are nowhere to be seen. Hong Kong is the only place in the country where we can speak out freely. According to a survey on press freedom, among 180 countries, China's ranking is the fifth from the bottom, and we now have a chance to express our views. To be honest, how much can we help Mr. Liu, even when we have a German motion debate? Well, we just want to tell people that we have a conscience. Hong Kong people has the conscience to speak out for what's happening in China. I support Mr. Hui's proposal. Mr. Lim Chuk-ting, according to Mr. Wong Kok-kin, if this council moves a German motion to debate on Mr. Liu Xiaobo's case, it's tantamount to the SAR government and the people of Hong Kong interfering with the judicial matters of China. This is an absurd assertion. I have to point out that Mr. Tam Yu-chung, deformed in 1989 on the 5th of June, at the City Forum in Victoria Park, he said he's strongly condemned what had happened the night before, and that is the massacre on the 4th of June. So to Mr. Wong Kok-kin and members from the FTU, I want to say this. If we discuss the case of Mr. Liu, it is tantamount to interference with the judiciary. So would that mean that Mr. Tam said something to interfere with the martial law promulgated by Mr. Li Peng? So Mr. Tam Yu-chung still had some conscience back in 1989. And we have so many vacant seats over there. Does it mean that the FTU members want to support Mr. Liu, but because of the CPG's powerful influence, and they are not ashamed of their historic role, and that's why they are not here. And the moment Mr. Cheung Kwok-kwan will speak, I would like to learn from him the position adopted by the DAB on this important matter. I hope that this council will have a chance to speak out for Mr. Liu. Dr. Lau Siu Lai, I just want to say something to Mr. Lim Chuk-ting. Well, you may have misunderstood the significance of so many empty seats here. It's just that their conscience have flown to Liaoning. Mr. Liu Xiaobo is not just a Nobel Prize laureate. He enjoys a special status in the mind of Hong Kong people. And the pro-establishment camp have been saying that we should learn more about China. And this case carries significance in this regard. And now Mr. Liu is dying. We don't know how much longer he will be able to live. So we should express our concerns on behalf of our people. This is only reasonable. If you go to the street, if you surf the internet, you will see that many people are very concerned about the freedom enjoyed by Mr. Liu. And the medical parole in our mind is not receiving medical treatment in a prison-like hospital, but to receive medical treatment outside China, out of China. This is a legislature representing the public opinion, so it's only reasonable that we have a chance to say something about this case. And I support Mr. Hui's proposal to have a German debate. Mr. Cheung Kok-kwan, here I would like to wish Mr. Liu a speedy recovery. With regard to this proposal to have a German motion moved by Mr. Hui Chi-fung, and that is we would like to have a debate on Mr. Liu's terminal liver and matters of his medical parole. I think information dissemination from the mainland has been transparent. We know the development of his disease and what treatments have been offered. We know that there's a quite elite medical team providing treatment and care to Mr. Liu. According to the opposition camp, medical parole in their mind would mean that Mr. Liu should be allowed to leave China. Now that Mr. Liu has been granted medical parole and he's now receiving treatment in the hospital, or whether he should be allowed to leave China for medical treatment. I think it should be something for Mr. Liu's family to raise, and it's up to the mainland authorities to make a final decision. And we are not in no position to comment whether Mr. Liu is fit to leave China for medical treatment.
Here in the Council, if we engage in uninformed discussion, then it may not be good enough. Next Wednesday, we have a pretty packed agenda. We may not be able to get round to it, even if we have this on the agenda. 1 minute, Mr. Ted Hui, in response. It is, we have overrun the time, and I think we have to put this to the vote. There are members who haven't spoken, and I hope that members would follow up on this outside this meeting. I've already made it very clear the speaker's not coming through. The speaker's not coming through. I've already borrowed 10 minutes from the Finance Committee. I think we have to bring this to the close. I think there is objection from members to extend the meeting. Mr. Ted Hui, please make a response. Remember, it's not coming through. I've made a ruling, please. All right. I have taken note of some members not being able to speak. I indicated my intention to draw a line, and this has been the practice of a chairman presiding over the meeting. I think we have to deal with this. I've already told members about the time, and I said I had to draw a line because of the time limit. Shame on Starry. Order, please. Order, please. If you don't observe the order, there is no way we can proceed. If members do not observe the rules of procedure, then I'll have to adjourn the meeting, or have these discussed at the next meeting. If you do not observe the rules of procedure, I'll adjourn the meeting for the item to be discussed next time. Mr. Ted Hui, I've drawn the line there. Mr. Ted Hui, I move this motion. I feel that you should allow everyone who wishes to speak to make their comments. You could tell the members' right to speak. I protest against it strongly. Under the rules of procedure, we can come back at 6:30 for part 2 of the meeting. Why do you want to curtail the meeting like this? Is it because of Mr. Liu Xiaobo's issue? I protest against this. Mr. Chen Kim-po. No, Madam Chair. We have to start at 4:30. We cannot go beyond 4:45. Otherwise, the meeting will have to be aborted. If you drag this on in a way that the meeting is aborted, if you can't really control the order, the meeting has to be adjourned. And people are standing up yelling at the chair. Please calm down, members. If you are yelling in your seat and we cannot proceed, then I would consider that we cannot proceed with the meeting. I have already drawn a line there. I've already drawn a line there. It's very clear. Please stop, Mr. Ted Hui. Please make a response in 1 minute. Point of order, Madam Chair. Why can't we come back at 6:30 for members to ventilate their views before we put it to the vote? Perhaps the Secretariat might wish to say something. We cannot proceed with the meeting, and the meeting has to stop.